All right. I feel like I'm getting stuff done. I got all the quizzes are up for all units now. So the only thing I need to do, there's a full-length practice test, which it pulls from the same banks the quizzes do. It just puts it in a 75-question format that's proportionally about the same as the test is. So I made it so it pulls so many from one category and another amount from a different category, so that altogether it'll be about like what an exam will be, and it'll change each time you take it, just like the quizzes do. There were 2 or 3 sections that I only had like two or three questions for. So just like the capacitors quiz, there may be, I think there's 2 that I know one had 2 questions besides capacitors, and another one had 3, I think. So, I've got both those tests are fully in, so I'm going to grab another test and see if I can get some more capacitors questions, and for that, those 2 sections, so that you can have more than just 2 or 3 questions. Let me know if you run into any errors. I have 2 children that like to talk to me while I'm doing stuff, so I get distracted a lot while I'm doing these. So I may have forgotten to select the right answer or something like that. So yeah, just let me know if there's any mistakes or anything that you see. Those are all up. I just need to get in the, I don't know if I'm going to use Quizlet. I actually, I have a request in to add an app to Canvas called Book Widgets that it's similar to Quizlet. So like I can put information in and it'll generate flashcards or games or whatever you want to use. Apparently, in order to put images into Quizlet, which is what I would have to do for the formulas, I have to pay. So I'm trying to see if I can get access to Book Widgets, and then it'll be right in Canvas, and I won't have to pay a subscription fee for Quizlet. So I'm still working on that. I sent an email in on like Friday or Thursday, and I haven't heard back yet. So hopefully I will get something back from them soon, and then I will have access. So there's that. Oh, that's for the formulas. And then I need to do the general test taking tips. I'll do a video and a quiz on that. So we already talked a lot about, I think we talked about the test taking tips, like pacing yourself and everything. So I'm going to make that kind of at the end, that it'll be like kind of that way it'll be fresh when you finish the class, for if you end up taking the exam in May or June. Other than that, do you guys have any questions? Have you been working through? I saw you guys are making progress. I saw the quizzes were getting done. Forget what. And I put up all the recordings I could have. I think there was one recording that I forgot to turn it back on, so it didn't record any of the class. Okay, capacitance quiz. Which question is it? Okay. Find. Okay, yep, found it. Okay. I did find errors in one of the questions I was uploading, so maybe it's possible there's an error in this one, but let's try it out. So there's 2 capacitors, and then there's a battery. And this is 10 microfarads and 5 microfarads. And this is 12 volts. Potential difference. Oh, and then this is labeled X. So it's the top one. Let's see where the math, what the explanation was. So charge equals capacitance times voltage. So that's the equation, Q equals CV. First, we have to find the effective capacitance. So since these are in series, we have to add them inversely, right? So 1 over C, well, 1 over C effective. You know what, let's do the other equation because it's faster. So effective, since there's only 2, it's the product divided by the sum. So C1 times C2 over C1 plus C2. So that'd be 10 times 5 over 10 plus 5. So 50 divided by 15 is like 3 point something, 3.3 microfarads. So micro is what exponent? That might be where you're running into trouble. Because we want to know Q equals, so it's 3.3 microfarads times 12 volts, right? So micro is 10 to the negative 6th, right? And well, 3.3 times 12 would be, well, 3 times 12 is 36, right? So another third of that would be 40. So it's 40 times 10 to the negative 6th. Oh, did I forget? Was I missing the negative? It should be to the negative 5th. Is it not negative 5th there in the quiz? It is. Okay. So yeah, so that would be 4 times 10 to the negative 5th is the charge, right? And then you have to use that equation again to figure out what the voltage is across just the one element. So if we're looking at just this, then we do V equals Q over C. So that's 4 times 10 to the negative 5th divided by 10 times to the negative 6th. Yeah. Right. You actually could probably leave this, if you wanted to leave this as negative 40, and then you just get 40 over 10, right? So that's 4. Because then, if you don't change it to proper scientific notation, if you leave it as this, then the 10 to the negative 6 cancel, and you just get 40 over 10, which is 4. And that makes the math a little easier. Hopefully, like, so since you don't have the calculator for this, right? If you simplify that, you get 3 and 5/15. Or yeah. So that would be 3.3-ish. So most of the math you can do without needing a calculator. Actually, all of it you should be able to do. Does that make more sense? What don't you understand? Do you understand how to find the effective capacitance? Okay. So then once you have that, yeah, and that's one of those equations I think you would just have to remember. Have you done the unit on capacitance yet? Like, did you watch the videos and stuff? Okay. So they should have explained in those about where all the equations that you get come from. Okay, yeah. Because the voltage, so okay, so wait, so you do get why we only take one capacitor at the end? Oh, okay. So when you have, so think of voltage as you have a whole bunch of electrons here and you have no electrons here, right? So there's a voltage difference between these two. The voltage, if there's a single path like there is here, there's a voltage potential here and a voltage potential here, right? Because these are openings. So there's the same amount of voltage here and here because they're just connected by a wire, right? So they're effectively the same place. But across here, there's a potential difference from here to here. And then there's a different difference from here to here because these are two different size capacitors. Did you do the DC circuits unit? Okay, that might help explain a little more about voltage drops. But basically, the voltage drop across each element has to, in a series circuit, has to add up to the total amount of voltage. So like here, since we saw X has a voltage drop of 4, that means the other 8 volts get dropped by this second one. Because in the end, we have to get back down to 0. If there's only one path, then the voltage is shared between the two pieces. If we were in parallel, something like this, the voltage potential here is the same as it is at the junction, which means that here and here have the same amount of voltage. And then since this side is 0, these two sides are 0. So they would have the same voltage drop. They would both be 12. In parallel, everything gets the same amount of voltage drop because it's the potential difference. It's the way it's connected to the battery. In series, each element drops a certain amount of voltage. It uses up a certain amount of the voltage. Yeah. So when you did, if you haven't watched the videos on the DC circuits, they will help make more sense of the capacitance circuits. I mean, they won't directly teach capacitance, but they're going to talk about voltage and current flow. And that will help make more sense of this stuff. Okay. Any other questions from capacitance? I know there were only like 2 or 3, but were any other sections, any other quizzes where you had questions on? what was going on? Oh, you guys made progress today. So you're both through capacitance. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more. I think I counted those right. There's 9 more sections. Optics are broken into pieces, but they kind of tie into each other because it's all talking about light, basically. So when you study those, you'll probably find there's some overlap between topics. So it might be better to do all the videos for optics and then try the quiz questions because they'll kind of tie in together. And the miscellaneous ones are mostly ones where there's multiple topics covered. So things with both kinematics and energy, or like there's some that talk about, it lists a bunch of different physics things like velocity and acceleration and momentum and stuff, and talks about, you know, which one's a vector and which one has the same units as energy, things like that. So that's why the miscellaneous one is last, because it ties in all the, like it could pull from any of the units. It includes multiple units in a single question. There are a couple questions. I'm trying to think. Well, I know in the miscellaneous section, and I think in a couple others where either all the answer choices are the same, because it was a group question. So it was like, you know, questions 6 to 8 all pulled from the same original answer choices, or from the same graphs, things like that. So they may look very similar, but just make sure that you're reading because the questions are different per question. So don't just automatically answer the same thing again. There are no repeat questions in there. They're all separate questions. Like there's one with graphs and it'll ask you to, like each question's separate, but one question asks you like which graph represents acceleration versus time. Another one asks, you know, what's displacement versus time look like, things like that. And then don't forget to, we have like 3 weeks and you'll be taking the final assessment. We only have 4 weeks left after this week. So I guess 4.5 weeks. So make sure you guys are making good progress. Try to do, you're probably going to want to do about 3 to 4 sections a week if you can to get through it all. And some sections will go a little faster than others. So heat and thermo, I only made 1 quiz section, even though it includes a couple different topics underneath it. But there's a lot of questions. I put in like 20 questions for that. So you can retake that one over and over if you just want to see other types of questions that you might get asked. Modern physics, if you've had chemistry, won't be so bad, because it includes some things about like the photoelectric effect and electrons, structures of atoms, things like that that you would have learned in chemistry too. And some nuclear stuff too. So putting, you know, breaking apart atoms or putting them back together, they look a lot more like chemistry type questions. Waves is probably going to be the hardest one going forward if you have not had that in class. If you've had it in class, it shouldn't be too bad. So do you guys have any questions for me? Anything you want to go through? Or you just need time to get through all the quizzes and stuff? Don't we all? That's how I have an Algebra 1 class before this. And a bunch of them are behind for the same reason. They just need more time to get through the work. So aim for At least 3 more sections this week, if you can, maybe 1 a day. Miscellaneous won't really have videos so much because it's just going to be a combination of stuff. So if you're going to watch videos before you take the quizzes, just don't make that delay you too much. Don't spend too much time watching videos and not get to the quizzes. But you guys are doing okay pacing wise. You just don't want to wait too long. And I was thinking too, since this is the first of this class, I may extend and I'll leave it up. Okay. So I think I'm going to end up, even though the class will be over on May 4th, I'm probably going to leave you guys access for another month or so. That way, you guys can go in and work on your own, but I'd still like you guys to pace yourselves so that you're done in time to take the final assessment so we can see how you've grown. And then after the final assessment, you can go back and work through some stuff that maybe you didn't do so well on still after the final assessment. Sound good? Okay, so you have an extra half hour that you were already planning to be in class, so you guys could go work on watching videos or taking quizzes. And then I will post an announcement when I get some more questions into those other sections. So you can go back and retake capacitance questions and stuff too, if you want. And otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Sound good? Okay. Yep, I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Are you good, Ronnie, or do you have a question? Okay. I usually wait for everybody to leave. Okay. End meeting.